Mismatch, we use number 5, and like the other ones, it was the teachers want to tell the students why it works before and the students just want the instrumental, the shortcut, how to get it quickly, and then really understand why once they have the shortcut.
And then one thing that we said for that too is it asks which is more of a problem for the teacher. And one thing that I kind of thought of was that teaching relationally, like that's a lot of work for the teacher. And I think that some people or some teachers who are more lazy are just gonna go to what's easiest, and they know that the students will understand it easier, and they know that it's easier for them to explain. And I feel like that's not necessarily a problem for the teacher, but for the students, because then they're not getting what they need to know. Anyways, so we also did the next one, which is an example of relational math. And this is just like a personal experience of mine. I took Calc 1 2 times, once in high school and then once here. And the first time I took it, my teacher was not the greatest, and he said, it's like you have an equation, here's an algorithm for that equation, and whatever you get is the derivative, and that's what you do. And like he didn't say what a derivative was, why it was notated that way, or what you use it for, anything. So I didn't get it. But then when I was here, I had a really good professor, and she explained everything very well, and like how we use it and why it's like that. And now I'm like great at derivatives. I'd like to think, anyways. Questions?
For the common mismatch one, I mean, it kind of goes back to optimization, but do you think that like we're naturally like just stop asking why, or like do we even ask why in the beginning?
I don't know. I kind of agree with what Courtney was saying, how like as you get older, it's kind of takes a lot of courage to ask why, I think, in front of a whole class. And that's why I would say that we stop asking why as much.
So, so do you feel like, I mean, you talk about how you feel like if a teacher's feeling lazy, they might teach more instrumentally?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but, I mean, do you think it actually takes less work?
I think
Or do you think it's a perception thing?
I think it depends on what you're teaching and what kind of students that you have. If you have a more difficult group of students, you know, it takes more patience, and you know that you're going to have to really work with everyone to make sure they understand. And that some students, or not students, but some teachers, maybe they just don't want to put that effort in.
Like if you have a class that's not quite as bright, and so they just don't understand the concepts at all, but they can memorize rules for different situations, then that'll be easier. But if you've got a class who's really good at understanding concepts and can understand, you can just teach them one concept and they can apply it to all sorts of different situations on their own, then it's going to be much easier just to teach a concept. And so I think that's what she's saying. For some students, it'll be really easy to just teach them a concept and they'll be able to apply it.
But I do want to say that I'm not like a proponent of like leaving either one out or like being a lazy teacher.
Any more questions? Girl back there.
Nameplates are coming out next month.
I don't know your name. I'm sorry.
Courtney.
Hi, Courtney. Right.
Do you guys think that most teachers teach instrumentally or relationally?
I would say most of my teachers usually try and make sure we understand the concepts, but that's just my experience with teaching.
Is there a difference between high school teachers and the professors?
Didn't hear that.
Is there a difference between the high school teachers and professors in terms of how they teach?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that professors are more relationally geared.
Do you think it matters to subject? Like, are teachers more likely to teach instrumentally in math and more relationally in like English or something? Does that matter?
I would say, wait, what did you just say?
Question.
Which one did you assign to English and which one to math?
I mean, that was just, it doesn't
Oh,
really matter. I'm just
well,
saying, do you think it
no,
matters?
yeah, I would say with English, it's more about, there's just rules, because math, you can explain why, because people set up a language and they said, here's rules.
See, that's interesting to me because I would think of it the other way around.
Me too.
I would think of math as instrumental and English
I
as
think of-
relational.
I think what you're talking about more is like language versus English, so you could think about like comprehension and theories and concepts versus just like
Themes versus grammar.
A-E-I-O-U. Yeah.
We're in a couple English majors, right?
Guess it's been fun.
I was curious because I was.
Well, like, I
Teach
think
English
it's hard to explain spelling to someone, but it's easy to explain why 3 + 2 = 5.
Well, then do you think it depends on their age? Like, sorry to keep asking questions, but like you're asking like, because you learn basic grammar and basic math and stuff in elementary school, but then when you get to high school, does it become more relational just because you're moving on with your knowledge, or do people continue to? Because I feel like my math education has been instrumental all the way through. It didn't get relational for me until college, really. So.
So for you, you asked why at a later age?
Like, do you think it changes? Because all of your instrumental English examples have been kind of elementary English. So I guess I'm asking if you think that English suddenly changes in high school, or all subjects change in high school, or, does that make sense? Does that make sense?
I don't think English ever really changes. I mean, and math doesn't either. You learn more about it.
When you get
Is that
to
what you're
college,
saying?
like,
You learn
when
more?
you learn English, like in elementary school and high school, like, it includes literature and all the concepts that you were talking about earlier, like themes versus motifs versus all that. Whereas in college, English is grammar, writing, whatever, and they actually separate literature out of that, so it's actually almost separated more. At least that was always in my schools.
I think one way to look at it is that you kind of start with rules so that you have a foundation to build up so that when you get to actually learning relationally, it makes more sense. Not that you don't start off relationally, but it kind of like shifts to how much emphasis is on each part, kind of off like what you were saying.
Thank you very much.